Hello, can you hear me? All right, cool. Hello, everyone. This is a panel about subscription businesses, and when we were talking about planning this out, it was actually pretty apt because TechCrunch is currently in the process of planning a subscription business. It's ExtraCrunch. So a lot of people on the TechCrunch team had something to say about the topic. Our panelists, I just kind of want to dive in and kind of hear a little bit about your startups and the products that you're offering, and we'll kind of dive in from there.
Should I kick it off?
Alex, let's go for it.
All right, I'm Alex Friedman. I'm co-founder of Lola, and we're a lifelong brand for women. We started the business in 2015, and our first product to market was cotton tampons in a subscription service. And when we first evaluated the market, what we realized was that women didn't have a lot of things they needed in this category. One was a brand that they related to, two was natural products with transparent ingredients, and three was an experience and a service that was customized to them and delivered to their home. So when we started the brand, we wanted to hit on all three of those things, and over the last 4 years have really expanded our product offering and content and community efforts to make sure that we can be there for her end to end for her reproductive life.
Perfect. Sandra?
Sure. So KiwiCo is all about encouraging kids to see themselves as creators and makers and innovators. How we do this is we actually design and we deliver hands-on projects for kids that are centered around STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, art, and math. We are all about trying to encourage these kids to see themselves as change makers and people who can actually make a difference in the world. The materials and the inspiration that we send to kids are delivered in what we call crates. And we are now coming up upon this quarter, we'll be shipping out our 15 millionth crate.
Amazing. Awesome. Eurie, what are you focusing on in investments at Forerunner?
Yeah, so I'm a general partner at Forerunner Ventures. We're early stage investors in the commerce ecosystem. We're proud investors of Sandra and KiwiCo. And really we're looking to invest in all ends of commerce, whether it's what people are buying, that's products and services and experiences, to where they're buying, that's in new distribution channels, new retail experiences, marketplaces, and even how they're buying, so how payments are being facilitated or how transactions are being inspired. So really, sort of capturing the imagination of how the whole ecosystem is evolving.
And what are some recent investments that you've made in the subscription space?
So I'm gonna be a little taboo here, but we don't invest in subscription businesses.
Okay.
As both of these founders just told you, they don't have subscription businesses. They have brands and experiences that are serving their customers in a much more holistic way, thinking about helping children be empowered to be creative, thinking about being a lifelong partner to women in their health journeys. And that's what we invest in. We invest in areas where founders are looking to create a solution for a really important problem for a specific consumer. And in that, if there is a part of the delivery of that service or product that could be beneficial to be on subscription, then great. But I think that the idea of starting a subscription company is sort of a fallacy to even start with. And so, we do try to think of it differently when people come in and pitch. But we've invested in, our very first investment in Fund 1 was Dollar Shave Club, obviously one of the earlier folks in the space. We have an investment in a company called Curology, which is teledermatology and customized prescription skincare delivered on a subscription, and many more that leverage subscription but don't necessarily only do that.
Gotcha.
Right, Alex?
So I mean,
You said the elephant in the room.
Yeah,
The first one.
I was like, who's gonna say it?
Yeah. So the title of the panel is "How to Build a Subscription Product."
I get
as you.
You're not getting the answer to that.
Well, when you Alex, when you came up with the idea, was a subscription kind of, in your mind, a subscription pricing model, like that was the likely route you're going to take?
So interestingly, I think subscription is the reason we came upon the business idea, which was there had been a lot of subscription e-commerce, and my co-founder and I thought, why isn't there that type of delivery mechanism in this category? And so we looked into it, and when we did, we realized we couldn't figure out what tampons were made out of. So in thinking through, is subscription the real value, we realized in women's reproductive health and in period care specifically, the problem was ingredients transparency, and that subscription would be a great feature for the business because it made sense for her life where every month she needed the same product.
Sure. And then Sandra was I mean, they're called subscription boxes by us laymen. So I guess curious if that was something that was kind of, in the roots of the idea from the beginning.
It wasn't necessarily where we started. So the heart of the idea came from initially a personal need. So my oldest two kids were getting to the age where I wanted them to have exposure to hands-on activities and to see themselves as producers and not just passive consumers, and I thought this was a way to do this. And what I found is that it was really difficult to come up with these ideas and go get the products, and it was a pain. And so as I did it, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to amortize my time and effort, so I would invite friends and their kids over, and one of the moms said, oh, you should start a business around this. And my initial thought was, this could be really fun, but is this actually a viable business? And I think, long story short, parents, moms are incredibly busy people, and so they're very well-intentioned. They want enriching activities for their kids, and if it can come to them in a convenient format from a trusted brand, then they're all in. And so that's how we came upon deciding that subscription was a great way to do this, because of the convenience of it. And then we have two customers. We have the parents, we also have the kids. And for the kids, to get a box that has their name on it, that's ultimately really delightful, and what they really care about is that it's really fun, that's a real win.
Mm-hmm. So how long was it between, the founding of the company and when you actually launched your subscription services?
For us, it was about a year.
Okay.
In about 10 months.
Okay. So in that time period, kind of digging in, what were, some of the kind of key moments for you guys?
So for us, when we came up with the idea, the first place we wanted to look was to our customer to see, what are the needs in this market. We are our own customers here. We believe we should know what's in the products that we're putting inside our bodies, but do other women care? Mm-hmm. So the first place we went were to focus groups, surveys, one-on-one conversations, basically talking with every woman we could possibly get in front of to pitch our idea and see what they thought. And from there, what we really learned was how to raise the question, have you ever wondered what's in your tampon? Mm-hmm. There were a lot of other ways to go about raising the topic that would put people on the defensive versus kind of starting with a broad, more open question. Also, within the first year, we realized that we needed to finance the business with investors. Mm-hmm. CPG is cash heavy, so are medical devices. So we started to talk to angel investors, and we raised a small round. We built a website. We basically lived in Canada with as inexpensive a dev shop as we could find while we built it. And we made our supplier relationships and built an early team. So
before a subscription product is launching, what are you looking for when you're talking to some of these companies that are building brands?
So I think it's important to remember that you have to have something someone wants before you ask them to pay for it every month forever. And that's what Alex is talking about. That's what Sandra did when she was starting to test out these boxes, which was to say, I think there's a problem out there. I feel it. I feel my friends feel it. But that's not enough. You're not the N of 5 that is going to make $1 billion business. But really understanding a whole consumer set. And so when we talk to founders and they come in and they talk about a deep problem that they see in the market that they've validated is a broader problem to more people, and that there's a solution they feel that this one, and what's hard is you're cash constrained, so you're starting with 1 or 2 products. It's not like an amazing experience because it's 1 or 2 products. And so, number one, you have to have that laser sharp product that is actually solving so much of the need that someone's like, well, it's only 1 product, but it's a really good product. Mm-hmm. And so I'm gonna start there, I'm gonna trust Lola, I'm gonna get this tampon, and then if I like it, I'm gonna stick with it. I'll sign up for the subscription because I do need it monthly. And then, hey, maybe I'll buy something else. And so the brand relationship builds over the course of time naturally, instead of, we've all seen plenty of box companies. I mean, we have a joke of how many box companies we've seen and what's in the boxes. And there are a lot of things that you don't even need the first time, much less needing it every single month into perpetuity, right? And it's not even 12 months isn't good enough. We can talk about retention later, but it's got to go on for a long time to have all of this economics sort of make sense. And so, when Sandra and Lola look at what is this item that is being consumed, and does it need to be repeat consumed for a long period of time? children grow up, their attention spans are as gnats are, and so you need more boxes, you need more learning. It's really about what the solution is and how it can evolve with the consumer's experience.
Yeah,
And I think that is one thing that was a little bit different for us when we were kind of in that pre-launch phase. Like certainly we did a ton of kind of what I call ghetto consumer research because you have no money. So the focus groups in your living room, we had kids come into my garage to engage with these activities. But when it came down to product design and product development, not only were we developing hopefully what would be ultimately a robust e-commerce platform, and for us also a content platform, probably similar to Lola, but also we were designing a physical product. And for us, it's not one product. Every month we actually promise a fresh new experience for the family. And that was definitely a challenge for us because we knew that we needed to have kind of a stable of products readily available because once we started, there was no going back. We had to keep sending these fresh new experiences out the door every month.
And when you're researching, you talked about some of the research groups, like as you're finding out who your customer is there any software you can rely on, or is it all just kind of good old-fashioned, chatting with who you think your end customer might be?
It's really more about chatting with them. A lot of it was qualitative for us to really understand how price sensitive people were in this category, whether they cared about the brands, what they thought about the products. We obviously did like much broader like Google surveys, but nothing super complex.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a lot of focus groups as well. So also trying to get out of your immediate friend circle, but kind of friend of friends and that type of thing. But for us, it was also really important to do the surveys. So we used SurveyMonkey quite a lot as well. And that was to put concepts out there and to get feedback from a broader audience, because geographically, we're based here in Silicon Valley, and that's not representative. And we want to make sure that we had something that really addressed a broader need and a wider audience. And so leveraging surveys was also super helpful.
One thing I'm always super curious about is like, how do you decide on pricing? It seems like that seems like one of the hardest questions. Like, how do you nail that down?
It's very complicated. I mean, I think for us, it's some combination of how much does it cost for us to produce, our customers' willingness to pay, and perception relative to the other brands. So the product that we were introducing to market and the product we sell today is made out of 100% organic cotton. That's very different from the products made of synthetic fibers. It's more expensive to source and produce, and it's higher quality. So our price point per tampon is actually slightly higher than the average price of like a mainstream brand tampon, intentionally, because it costs more and you're making a conscious decision. So something actually very different about our brand and a lot of the other subscription box companies that were very successful that we followed is that ours wasn't a price play. It was an ingredients transparency play and a wellness play and a brand play.
And have you like played around with the pricing any since launch? Like, what sort of decisions went in there?
So we haven't changed the price of a box of tampons. We have introduced a lot of additional products, and so have made a conscious decision relative to the tampon price and relative to the market. For pads, liners, we've introduced cramp care, which is an innovative category that didn't before exist. We have a first period kit, which is also a product that didn't exist, so we didn't have a comp in market. But as we think about, kind of growing from a direct-to-consumer brand and thinking about other channels in which we could possibly sell the products, we'll definitely be like rethinking the whole pricing strategy and making sure that wherever we are, we're serving her in the way that she is used to buying the product and at a price point that she responds to.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm
and
curious
I think
more
on
about
the
that.
pricing topic, I would say that people often think because you have the subscription, you have multiple months that you can somehow take a lower margin hit on a kind of per month basis. I think we encourage our founders and teams to really think carefully about that, because if you start to see that by giving yourself like a good healthy margin, gross margin, which you need to fund sales and marketing and product development and all of your OpEx, if you start to whittle that away, hoping that everybody stays on board, it just sets you up for a really difficult time to scale. And so gross margin is something we're maniacal about, and we kind of say 50% plus is a must-have. In the beginning, you're making small quantities, so you got to figure out how best you can get there. But if you can't see a path to that, it's probably not the right pricing.
Okay.
And if you feel like, well, if I do that, then the pricing just feels too expensive and I don't think anyone's going to buy it, then maybe you have to reverse engineer how you're making something or whether or not it's actually going to be like good product market fit.
Mm-hmm. How has KiwiCo thought of pricing?
I think very similarly. I think what's interesting for us right now is within the past year or so, we have different lines with different price points now. One thing that we've kept very consistent is that we have free shipping for the consumer, and obviously free shipping is free to them and not so free to us. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it's one of the biggest expense points when you look at the unit economics. And so that is something that has been kind of an interesting thing that we've debated internally around what do we do with shipping? Do we make it free? Do we not make it free? Mm-hmm. And for us, we have decided to make it free to the consumer.
Eurie, have other startups kind of come to you with the same question about shipping?
Yeah, I think it's, you have to kind of do the math and figure out what your company needs. But shipping is one thing that we've all just been trained by Amazon to have as free.
Yeah.
So if there is some other way that you can make that back up, or even people have tried memberships where you get into a small membership and then at least you've sort of self-identified as being a more loyal customer, hopefully, and so maybe then it's worth giving the free shipping. It's just really hard when you start to give, Curology gave a free trial, but then you'd have to pay for shipping. So at least you kind of are making sure that the customer is a valid customer to be spending that money on, because ultimately it's just customer acquisition cost and a retention cost.
Mm-hmm. Alex, you were talking about how you started off with one product line and then you made all these product extensions. How did you kind of go about making those decisions the same way that you came up with the idea for the company, or how did that come about?
In exactly that way. So
Okay.
I think when we started the brand, we were our own customer, and we figured we need something new in this category. And as we spent a year or two in a community of tens of thousands of women learning about their needs in reproductive health, and also my co-founder and I went through different reproductive life stages through those years as well, and had kids. What we realized was every life stage for a woman through her reproductive health, from her first period to when she's in menopause and beyond, is very similar in that it's a universal experience for half the population, but there's stigma, and so she feels very isolated. Nobody's talking about it, and therefore product needs go unmet, and therefore dialogue doesn't happen, and therefore community isn't built. And so we figured, okay, there's this opportunity to build an end-to-end experience here. Where do we start? And so from the moment we realized we wanted to be a lifelong brand, the mission and vision was clear, and the real question was, where do we start? And do we build chronologically? Do we start at one end and bookend it and go fill the middle? Obviously, there are a lot of different categories and moments, so how can we be there for her at every stage with products and content and community? And so after period care, we went to sexual wellness because that was very resonant with our current customer base, and we had received a lot of feedback that women were curious about ingredients in those products, and we'll continue to use her experience and her questions to drive the strategy.
Mm-hmm. When you're looking at some of these products, I guess how is marketing something that you're just super concerned about finding the right people to represent your brand from the very beginning, or at what stage are you? Because I guess with so many subscription products, I just kind of a lot of the marketing looks the same. It's just sans serif fonts on Gaussian blur backgrounds, and it's everything kind of develops this similar look over time. But when you're talking about something like you are, where you want to create this relationship with the customer, where they're going to come to you when they have are in different life stages, how early are you hiring a CMO or a creative brand officer, or using an agency? How's that work?
Yeah, so not yet.
Okay.
So we're 4 years in, and a lot of it has come from looking at the industry, very low bar on branding. So,
Sure.
and trying to figure out what are the things that women want to experience in this category, and how do they want this product to exist in their bathroom? Do they want to shove a box of tampons under the sink and be embarrassed, or do they want to leave it out like the other products in their bathroom? How do women want to be talked to in this category? And the answer is with candor. And so how can we actually build a tone that sounds like women they want to hear from, rather than kind of an old stodgy brand that doesn't get them.
Yeah.
So I do think a lot of the direct-to-consumer brands of the same era do have a similar vibe, and have obviously worked with a lot of the same agencies. But in this category in particular, for us, it was meaningful to really understand what is the look and feel that she'll relate to here, and what feels respectful and new and fresh.
And with KiwiCo, it's a unique situation where you're dealing with parents and kids, so you kind of want to have a little bit of an attractive proposition to them. Like, same question when you're looking at marketing, like how early did you have to really dial into that?
Yeah, and also I think it's interesting, kind of the question around products and product lines as well. And so first, we started off with one product line, Kiwi Crate, that was geared for early elementary school age kids. And then this was a pretty pivotal point for us. We decided to actually launch 3 additional lines. So we launched a line for preschoolers, and then we also launched a line centered around STEM for kind of tweens, and then one centered around art and design for tweens. And we put them out there, and we thought, you know what, we're going to double down on the one-on-ones that actually do really well. And they all ended up taking off, and we decided to invest in all 3 additional lines. And there were a few things that we knew when we launched them, and then there were some things that were surprising to us ultimately. And so when we launched them, we knew that, of course, like the addressable market would increase because we had just a wider age band that we were actually addressing. We also knew that one of our churn reasons was too young and too old, and so we were able to really very much mitigate that particular churn reason. The other things that were surprising to us is that we were able to test different marketing messages then. So geared towards preschoolers, STEM, art and design. And what we ended up finding is that we were able to be much more efficient with our marketing spend, because we found certain types of marketing messages actually resonated across the age band, but then they would come to us and then they would self-select into the appropriate age. So maybe it's an ad that they see that's all very engineering focused, but then they had a preschooler, so then ultimately they would sign up for the preschool line. So that was interesting. And then the other thing was, from a unit economic perspective, like I said, shipping is a really, really big cost. And the fact of the matter is most US households have more than one child. And so what we found is that there is a pretty decent percentage. So over 20% of our shipments go out with more than one crate in them. And so then ultimately we were able to amortize that shipping cost, and that really helped us out in terms of kind of profitability, overall profitability ultimately, and kind of really helped the economics work out.
It's been a bit, but I do want to know what is in one of these crates, like for something for preschoolers. Like what can you find in one of them?
So it varies depending on the
Sure.
age.
Yeah.
We just launched our 7th product line, and
Okay.
we're going to be launching our 8th in November. And so, for example, in our Tinker Crate line, which is for tweens, it's all about STEM. And so you might get all the materials to build a walking robot. And so you can tinker with it, and it'll walk forwards, it'll walk backwards. Another month, you might get all the materials and the inspiration to build a trebuchet. So it'll launch like a kind of ballistic machine. So mechanical engineering, sometimes we get into, before slime was a thing, we sent out a slime crate.
Okay.
So learning about chemistry and polymers
Cutting
as
edge.
well. So that gives you a feel for what's in the crates.
Cool. And how are you, before you send these out, like how are you getting feedback, I guess, after you send them out in terms of whether they were like, a hit, or if they kind of stayed in the box or got put together once?
Absolutely. So we have a sizable room in our office that's our product testing lab. So kids come in 4 to 8 times a week, and each product, I would say we spend over 1,000 hours on each crate that goes out the door, and part of it is dedicated to testing with kids to see what their engagement actually is, and there's plenty of things that don't actually make it out the door. post-delivery, and this started from our very, very first crate that we sent out, we would send out a crate survey. So for every single experience that we've sent to a consumer, we have data about that particular crate. We have a crate score, we have something that we call a crate NPS, and then we have qualitative feedback on each and every project that we've sent. And what we've been able to do now is take that data and link it actually to customer lifetime value. And so for any given crate, we have a score. And now what we can do, given that we're at a place where we have scale, is we are able to match a given crate to a given customer at a given point in their life cycle. So if we know that somebody's a brand new subscriber, we can send a certain type of crate. If we know that somebody is coming up on a renewal point, we can send a certain type of crate as well. So we're really able to leverage that data in order to provide a really robust and appropriate experience for that customer.
Eurie, when you're talking with startups that you're looking at prospective investments, like, are they often struggling with kind of building out different product lines or deciding who their individual customer is, and kind of I'm curious, what are the most common issues?
So we're seeing companies pretty early.
Yes.
So at times they don't have a product yet, or maybe they are close to having a prototype or something like that. So I think more what Alex was talking about is thinking about what is the vision for the platform when it succeeds in launching this first product. And if you successfully build that relationship with a customer, what will he or she want you to make next? That's a natural extension of that same relationship. And what we as investors are looking for is, it's not good enough to be a really successful box company with like the same two things in the box, because at some point these people are going to churn out, and at some point it's just not going to be good enough. So you have to evolve. You have to be targeting a category and a use case that's broader, that's going to evolve as your customer grows, and that you have the vision and the desire to grow with. If Alex in the beginning said, no way, I'm only period, like I'm only doing this, I don't want to target menopause, or I don't want to think about all these other, like maybe every time somebody wants body care products from them, and why not? Why wouldn't that be a brand that you would want to have more from if you've trusted them? They give you great products, they give you great transparency. And so from an investment standpoint, and as you guys are all thinking about starting your businesses or thinking about growing your businesses, the first product just has to work, or else you're just not going to have a company. But to be a big company, you have to have much more than just the product. It has to be the full experience and the full relationship that you have. And then certainly you have to have the muscles on your team to be able to listen, evolve, test, and grow. And to the marketing question, in those early days, the founders are the marketers. Like, you're the ones that have the inspiration, and you're the ones that are closest to the consumer. And so it is hard when you have to hire in an outside marketing person to tell you what to do. So we're obviously searching for companies that are like these companies, where the founders know so much about their customer that for the first few years, you have a very clear line of path forward. It's not complicated. It's just execution, and it's hard to do, but you need to have a pulse on that customer.
Just to remind everyone, if you submit questions via the TechCrunch app, I can take a look at them here. I guess one of the big issues with subscription businesses is churn, and it's something we got to spend some time talking about. Like, how much time are you spending focusing on reducing churn? Most of your time, I would imagine.
I'm spending a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
I mean, so for us, churn can be caused by a lot of things. A main reason women churn is they get pregnant. So that's a great indication for us that we actually need to be there for her end to end throughout her life with products she needs.
Sure, yeah.
Because we're there for her at the end of pregnancy, and we win our customer back. But that's a key moment where, again, there could be 9 months to several years where they don't have the products that they need. For us, retaining customers is really about having that fantastic brand experience and engaging them in the content and community while they're a customer. So it's not just about being a subscriber, but about trying to drive open conversation in women's reproductive health and being a safe space where she can go to for questions. And something that we've found really interesting and are very proud of is that 4,000 customers reach out to us a month on personal topics. So, more than 1 in 4 of our customers since inception of the business have contacted us to talk to us about personal topics. And, they can be lightweight to kind of deeper or more intense conversations. But the fact that we're actually driving 50,000 conversations a year, one-on-one conversations with our customer in reproductive care when, 5 years ago, those conversations literally did not exist because no brand was there to receive them. It has been a really incredible output of what we're building.
Mm-hmm. And Sandra?
It's interesting. I'd say for us, for the first part of our startup experience or our company's existence, we paid attention to churn, but we didn't have as much of a concerted effort around it in terms of the programs. We were more fixated around acquisition in the very, very beginning,
Sure.
And making sure that we got that working really well. But obviously churn is incredibly important because if you look at the overall subscription equation, ultimately your customer lifetime value needs to be high. And so we do things like I had described, which is leveraging our data in order to be sending out the appropriate experience to the customer at a given time. But other things that we do now are, for example, we have specific programs around customer graduation. And so we know a child's age. We will sometimes auto-graduate the child depending on their experience or their age so that they continue to have a fresh experience and something that's really age appropriate for the child. So sometimes we do that proactively. We also allow for a level of customization. So it's very easy for people to be able to transition from one line to another line, or they can pause their subscription if they would like. Mm-hmm. Or we also allow them to buy into what we call a deluxe program, and so we actually add a book on to a given delivery. And in addition, this is something that it sounds like Lola does too, is we try to build out an experience that includes a lot of really robust content too, both for kids as well as for parents. And I think that's another thing that people are attracted to and they remain a part of our community. And so even if somebody were to initially churn, our hope is that they continue to engage with that content and eventually they come back again. Because we have plenty of people who actually sign up, let's say, for a given holiday, and ultimately they end up coming back again too.
Have you found a sweet spot in terms of kind of communicating with your customers so it's not, the only communication they're getting from you isn't just getting boxes in the mail?
Yeah, I mean, we have an ongoing dialogue with our customers. Like the way that we look at our business is, the first product we launched is relevant in her life for 40 years. So you get your period, let's say when you're 12, and you have your period into your early 50s. So our only communication, if we're actually trying to build a brand and service her and drive open conversation, can't be, hey, your box has arrived. Sure. Like, hey, here's the 2-day reminder email. Of course, all of that operational stuff has to be perfect for her to stay. But we're also trying to create value in her life. So we're communicating in our social channels. We're trying to drive open conversations about first period Fridays or really any topic that she's thinking about where she doesn't have a place to go, and engage her as much as we can, but not to the point where we're bothering her.
Yeah, I'm curious about the nitty-gritty of that.
When
you're, what are some things that you've discovered in terms of, they didn't like this messaging system, or, it kind of, we were talking to them a little too much,
Like from a really tactical perspective?
Yes,
or
exactly.
More,
from a tactical perspective.
I mean, what we've found is that if we email our customers more than 2 or 3 times a month, it feels like too much.
Okay.
When we talk to our customers, most of them are receiving a lot of communication from a lot of different brands. If they are an early customer of Lola, they're, as an early adopter, they're open to lots of other brands for different categories. So it's not like they're necessarily going on Amazon for every single thing.
Sure.
So we don't want to inundate them. We want to just deliver high value communication at specific points in their reproductive life cycle, their product life cycle, or the brand story to engage them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good litmus test, actually, because if you can't think through what your content strategy would be to continue investing in that relationship and being relevant to your customer, then perhaps the product you have is not something that captures enough mind share to be able to expand into a big business. It might be an amazing product, and maybe, I do want to buy it on a monthly basis, but it's very much like a transactional kind of thing, and it solves a point solution. But I think when you have the more successful companies and founders, they've really struck a chord with, it's a whole topic that is not being sort of discussed in the market, where as a result of the service you're providing, you're actually the person they want to talk to. You know, you want to go to Sandra's company and be like, oh gosh, my daughter's turning 3, like, I don't know, what am I supposed to be teaching her? Because it's so hard to find that information elsewhere. She can do the guidance as well as provide the service. So I think those are all ways to think about, is the product that you're serving in that category of having like a discussion area that's rich enough to grow with over time.
Cool. Well, we're wrapping up, but I want to know, Sandra, what's next on the product roadmap? What's the next big move for KiwiCo?
Yeah, a lot. Well, I mentioned that we're launching a new line later this year. We just launched Panda Crate, which is for newborns through 24-month-olds that we're really excited about. And then we have another one launching really soon. In addition to that, related to the idea of consumers and them telling you what they want and their engagement with your company and with your brand, what we're hearing is that they want more from us in terms of different use cases, different price points, and different form factors, but still centered around kind of the ethos that is KiwiCo, kind of that around that active play and engagement that's both a combination of enriching and super fun. And so one of the areas of investment, it's ironic because we're talking about subscription, is in traditional e-commerce. So one-off purchases and different form factors. So not only making and playing, but all the way through to finished goods, but still centered on the child as a creator and a maker.
Solid.
Yeah.
What's next on the roadmap for Lola?
So we have a big launch coming up in the next few weeks. When we started the brand, we were very focused on just tackling periods. Over the next few years, we were thinking about how do we actually expand the brand into other product categories within reproductive health. And over the last year, we've been thinking about how to actually own our IP and manufacture. So there's very big breakthrough technology that we're excited to introduce. We bought a machine, we produced it ourselves, and it's coming soon. I can't say what it is, but when you see it,
keep my eyes peeled.
You'll be thrilled.
All right, cool. All right, well, Alex, Sandra, Eurie, thanks so much. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.